Hello, everyone. This is Debbie Richards. I am the president-elect of ATD Houston. I'm so happy that you're able to join us today. And for those of you that are watching this via recording, we're happy that you're able to watch this as well. This is the ATD Houston chapter webinar for December. I'm going to start off by just saying that we are in the middle of our Employee Learning Week. This is happening all week long, and this event is one of the events as part of our Employee Learning Week. We have a proclamation from the mayor of Houston that officially set forth this week as Employee Learning Week. Here's an event that happened earlier this week. We all got together and had a cooking class at, for some reason my slide presentation is speeding along when I don't want to do, so I'm going to change up here so I can go a little bit slower and show these slides. So here's a picture from our cooking event that we had on Tuesday night. We got to visit the home of Monica Pope, an acclaimed chef, and we had a cooking class. It was fantastic. We had about 30 people that attended, and we really all enjoyed it. You can see the proclamation from the mayor there as well. Duncan Welder is holding that. So a great time to be had by all. So Employee Learning Week happens the first week in December, and we love to hear what is happening in your organization for learning. If you go out to social media, to our Facebook or Twitter sites, you'll see some postings, and we'd love for you to let us know what you're doing in your organization to help celebrate Employee Learning Week, because as we all know, workforce development is everybody's business, and we all want to know what's going on in your organization. So in this webinar, we're going to try to make it a little interactive. And I want to just let you know that we have everybody right now on mute. If for some reason during the webinar you want to ask a question, there is an icon that you can click to raise your hand. And just so that you guys can see that, I'd like for you all to click on that icon now. I see Amanda has clicked on it. To let us know that that you can see that. Everybody's clicked on it. Fantastic. So I'm going to lower your hands. So if you have a question, you can do that. There is also a question area where you can submit a question, and we'll be watching those, and we will answer your questions as well. So we want to try to make sure that as we go through everything, that you're able to get the information that you need from Shannon during this webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Shannon. Shannon is the owner of Learning Rebels, and she is a very popular learning strategist. She has a lot of years of leadership development, and she does a lot of work in the e-learning arena. She was telling me about a workshop that she did yesterday for the Indiana chapter. She spent the whole day with that group going through understanding what microlearning is and giving them a hands-on experience with microlearning. She also has a really neat newsletter that you can subscribe to, and she speaks at a lot of events. And so we're very excited and thrilled to have her participating in our webinar today. And what she has asked us to start off with, and I'm going to bring this up for you, is she's going to be talking about 7 micro-learning myths. And what she'd like for you to do, and if you will go ahead and just put this information in the question tab, we want to know what myth you are most interested in learning about. Being time-dependent, micro-learning in short videos. To create microlearning, you need high-tech tools. Microlearning is chunking. Microlearning is easy to create. Microlearning is a fad, or microlearning is one size fits all. So we would like to hear from you. And Jermaine says that number 5 is the one of interest. Judith is also interested in number 5. Um, and Cynthia is interested in myth number 6 about microlearning being a fad. And then Amanda is interested in number 5 and 7. So does that give you some good information for the webinar, Shannon?
Absolutely.
All right. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and I'm going to turn the presentation over to Shannon. I'll be listening in the background. If you have a question, you can put the question in, and then you can also, if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand, and I'll let Shannon know that that you want to ask a question. So without further ado, Shannon, I'm making you the presenter, and we're anxious to hear your topic.
Great. So let's see here. All right. Now, is Debbie, do you see my screen?
Yeah, but it's in presentation mode where we can see your next slide.
Yeah, let's get that.
I think you have to click that little icon down there next to search.
Where'd it go? There we go. Show screen 2. There we go.
Oh, there we go. That's perfect.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for your input in regards to which of the myths in microlearning you are most interested to hear. And the reason why I really like conducting this particular presentation is, as most of you are aware, microlearning is hitting you from all sides. If a day goes by where you don't receive some kind of email where microlearning is in the subject line, I'll be shocked. Especially since a couple of years ago when Tony Bingham stood up at the ATD conference and said that everybody needs to get behind microlearning, and he's absolutely correct in stating that. However, it did create an influx of vendors who are all of a sudden experts in microlearning, whereas the day before they were not. So this created a lot of confusion in the field and within the industry about microlearning in of itself. So I wanted to start out by saying that, and just so that we could preface this presentation. I've been working actually with microlearning for the last 4 or 5 years. So I've spent a lot of time in this space and doing a lot of research in regards to this particular topic. And I've worked with a variety of different clients in a variety of different modalities in regards to microlearning, specifically about taking their big, giant, bloated content, deconstructing it, and then reconstructing it in such a way where you still had a curriculum that made sense, but also incorporating microlearning elements so that it made it more palatable to the people who are out in the field and the people who were going to participate in that learning, and creating those moments of learning reinforcement, which is what microlearning is truly all about. It's about building those microlearning moments that allow people to pull information from the back of their head, right, from their long-term memories, and pulling it into the front of their heads so that they're able to use it and then store it again. Because as we all know, when it comes to the psychological learning process, the whole key is you don't want to just put information into your long-term memory and let it sit there and collect dust bunnies, right? We need to pull it out and use it back and forth in order to build and strengthen the connections in the brain. And microlearning really does help you do that. So when it comes to microlearning, this is the face I usually get. Everyone's confused. As I said, I don't know what microlearning is anymore. there's so much information coming to me, and that's okay. And that's what I'm here for. So just quickly to give you a definition, my definition of what microlearning is. Microlearning is short bursts of focused, right-sized content to help people achieve a specific outcome. So hopefully this resonates with you. And this definition is broad for a purpose, because microlearning is not something done to you. Okay. Microlearning is a way of learning. We don't do microlearning to people. We don't do learning to people in general. So microlearning is another modality in which for you to pull out and use when appropriate. And the key is, when is it appropriate? And so what I want to do here is we're going to talk about the different myths surrounding it, some of the things that, really are putting this microlearning path in the wrong direction. But before I do that, I'd like for you to, I'm not sure if I'm seeing everything in the chat. So you guys do me a favor, and in the chat, if you have one burning question about microlearning, I'd like you to put it into the chat for me right now so I can see it.
Shannon, I think they'll have to put that in the question box.
Okay. I'm not seeing the question box.
All right, let me see if I can. Turn that over to you now. So if you have that question and you want to put that in the question box, everyone, you can do that now.
That would be awesome. What burning question do you have about microlearning? And if you have no burning questions, then just put, I don't have a burning question, just so I know that you're out there and you're breathing and you're with me.
So Judith has said, what is the long-term effectiveness of microlearning?
Okay, the long-term effectiveness of microlearning. Here we go. You know what I'm sorry, yes, Judith. That's a really great question. I get that question quite often. And the key here is to understand that microlearning is not about behavior change. So you're not going to be able to create a series of microlearning courses or content that's going to change behavior. What you can do is create a series of microlearning elements that support behavior change. And that's where long-term effectiveness really comes into play, because you can continue to take those microlearning elements and put them out into the wild, so to speak, so people can access them over and over again, or you can assign them to people to continuously bring forth, additional knowledge or to reinforce knowledge that they already have. So the long-term effectiveness is really out there. You can really make this evergreen. You can make all of your microlearning content as evergreen as you need it to be, or as focused as you need it to be. And so there's a lot of different techniques that we can use that we'll talk about. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, Patricia has a question about how to take medium to big chunks of information, especially technical information, into a microlearning format to make it easier for college students.
That's an excellent question. I get that one a lot too. And you know what? I'm going to hold on to that question, because that's really going to play into one of the myths that we talk about. So hold on to that one, because we're going to answer that one here in just a little bit. What else we got?
Cynthia has a question. Can microlearning be a formal event?
No. I don't usually go as absolute as that. It can be part of a formal event. It is not the formal event. So for example, if you had a sales training program, you got a bunch of salespeople and they're in it for a week. Now you could create microlearning objects to support that training event after the training event, or even before the training event. And subsequently then it becomes all part and parcel of the learning experience and the environment that you set up, but it's not a standalone formal event. So hopefully that answers your question. You're welcome. All right. So moving on here is one of the things that I think that it's important, that also goes to some of the questions that you were asking, is if you've seen the infographic, Meet the Modern Learner by Bernsen by Deloitte, they give several interesting statistics, but one that I just want to call out here. And it's that 1% of the typical work week is all that an employee has to focus on training and development. 1% of their week. So if you think about that, you got 40 hours in a work week, your typical work week. Most of us are working more than that. But you got 40 hours in your typical work week. That's 4 minutes. That's 4 minutes that people have to dedicate to their training in the workplace. A 4-minute YouTube video, right? So you think about it, when I'm on YouTube, I'm looking at baby goat videos. So that's your competition. How are you going to compete with the baby goat video, that is maybe 4 minutes long, that people want to be able to engage with? And this is the struggle that we have as L&D professionals in general, is really ensuring that the work that we are creating fits within the context of the workplace. And this is where microlearning can really help you out. So when you're thinking about how am I going to create microlearning and how is it going to affect people's day-to-day, the key here is thinking about what problem are we trying to solve directly in the moment. So right here, right now, I need help in order to solve a problem that's in front of me. And a person should be able to pull up some sort of microlearning element in order to help them out. And you might be thinking to yourselves at this point, well, gee, Shannon, that sounds an awful lot like performance support. Yes, you're right. It does sound an awful lot like performance support. And a lot of what microlearning is, a fair majority of what microlearning is and can be, is performance support, along with learning reinforcement. So those are the two categories that I put microlearning into. So now we've got our myths. So these are the 7 myths that most people have a little bit of redirection on, that they're not quite sure about. So we've got that microlearning is time dependent, that it's all about video, that high tech is required. Well, isn't microlearning just chunking? That's the other question I get very often. It's easy to create, it's a fad, and it's one size fits all. So now what you guys have indicated to me is that the 3 most important to you right now, we'll talk about the 3 most important. And the first one was all about that it's easy to create. So easy to create, right? It's easy to create. It's easy peasy. It's simple. Simple does not necessarily mean easy. So I think we all understand the difference with that. And the key here is that microlearning might be small, but it needs a plan. A microlearning course is a learning journey, where people can pick and choose what they need to learn in the moment that they need to learn it. So we are creating this point of knowledge that is really very specific. However, the structure is critically important, and its context is important, and the relevance is important. So now the question before, in regards to, how do you create information? Let's see, it was, how do you get medium to big chunks of information, out there to people? Well, part of this is the deconstruction of information. And this is where it becomes a little bit complex. So the hard work for microlearning is all in the planning stages. So what I like to do, and the specific question was asked by Patricia. So Patricia, what I like to do here is we take the big macro curriculum and then you chunk that down into specific key points. Okay, so if we are talking about something that is technical in nature, so you are teaching them about a specific program or a specific software. Typically what happens here is we break down our lessons, or not our lessons, we break down our program into modules, and then we break down our modules into lessons. That's your standard instructional design approach. So what happens here is that you create a hierarchical outline for your content. Okay, so if I were to use golfing as an example, so we're going to teach someone to golf, and then we got different modules there. It might be how to drive a ball, how to putt a ball, how to spot a ball. So you have all these different modules, and then you break it down. So if we said this is how we're going to putt, in order to putt, we need to know how to choose a club. Well, you only got one club to choose from, but let's just say you got how to choose a club, how to read a green, how to stroke. Okay, so you got those different lessons. So let's say we focus on how to read a green. So, okay, you got how to read a green. So the next couple of key points behind that are how to read the lay of the grass and how to determine the flow of the grass, let's just say. So you got two things there: how to read the grass, how to determine the flow of the grass. So those two things, you've reached the bottom of your hierarchy. Those two items subsequently become your microlearning objects, because that's the very bottom. You cannot take it any smaller without the content ceasing to make sense at that point. So those two can be created or can be put into microlearning elements which support the larger course, which is how to golf. So a person can then watch that video or read that infographic or what have you, and be able to understand what to do at that moment that the decision or the action takes place. And so this is the beginning part of developing your microlearning content. So you need to subsequently then put it into your hierarchical outline, take it down as far as you can take it down. Those items that sit at the bottom of the hierarchy, those become standalone microlearning elements. And that's why it's not easy. It can be simple once you get the hang of it. You can work through it rather quickly. But in order to create effective standalone microlearning, which is what microlearning is, and I'll get to that in a second, then you've got to be able to create your hierarchy and understand exactly what your content is trying to develop. So everybody on board with me, I hope. All right. So the next one was microlearning is just a fad. Okay. Right? Microlearning is a fad. Easy come, easy go. It's here today, gone tomorrow. Right? So, and a lot of people are thinking that. It's like, oh, well, I'll wait for this truck to leave because another truck is going to dump another fad on me here in a second. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not a fad. Some of my research takes microlearning, the specific term microlearning, back into the early 1990s. So we're talking a good, 10, 15 years ago, where people were working with the term microlearning. Now, prior to that, anyone out there who's creating performance support is also creating microlearning objects. And we all know that performance support has been around forever. We've been creating good, solid microlearning performance support objects for a while. So let's understand first what the word fad means. So fad is defined as a short-lived trend that garners a widely shared enthusiasm. So, for those of us who lived through the 80s, I think I still have a coat in my closet that has shoulder pads in it, and I had the big poofy hair and it was permed and all of that. That, folks, is a fad. All of the girls decided that we all wanted to look like poodles for some reason or another back in the 80s. Now, back in 2002, the BBC did a research that indicated that 94% of learners preferred learning modules under 10 minutes. And that is not a fad either. So you think 2002, that's 16 years ago. 16 years ago. So here we are. So this is not going away, and this is not something that should go away. We need to, again, if you go back to the slide that I showed at the beginning of all of this, is that people have very little time in which to work. So being able to give them learning modules or give them performance support that is short and to the point is not something that we should ignore. We should be trying to incorporate more and more of this into our curricula modality. Here's the thing, is that microlearning is not necessarily that one size fits all, right? Which was the next thing that you guys had talked about. Microlearning is not the magic unicorn. So that was the other fad that you guys identified that you wanted to learn more about. So, I mean, not fad, the myth that you wanted to learn more about. So again, microlearning is not the magic unicorn. You're not going to wave a wand and rainbows and butterflies are going to come out and everything is going to be fixed because of microlearning. And because this is such a buzzword, you may be getting information from leadership that says, hey, that microlearning thing, can you do more of that? We need more of that microlearning thing around here. And then we're good L&D people and we smile and we nod and we say, sure, we'll make that happen. But it's not always fit for purpose. And your job is determining how you're going to make that fit within your curriculum. So the 2 points in time to use microlearning is in just-in-time development and to support behavioral change. So it's supporting behavioral change. It's also supporting learning reinforcement, as I said before. So not every subject matter or training module should be bite-sized pieces. It's not fit for purpose for everything. Now you can create bundles. So if you think about if you've got an iPhone, and I apologize for those of you on the line who are Android users, I'm not that familiar with an Android, so I do have my iPhone. And so you've got your iPhone in front of you, and most likely you've got a whole bunch of apps, and you've got those apps categorized, right? So on my phone, I'm looking at my phone right now, and I have a category on my home screen that says travel. And within that, I have all of the different travel apps. So if I open up travel, all of my travel apps show up. So think about all of those different apps as being micro-learning elements, if you will. I can pick and choose whichever one I want to help me answer the question that I have at the moment. They're all bundled together. And so you can also create these bundles that will help you support the curriculum that you have. So you can then create that bundle of sales micro-learning elements. And you can assign them then to your sales team. And they can pick and choose which ones they want. Now, you can also say, all right, we're not going to force you to take them in a certain order, and nor should you. People do not like being forced to take training in the way that you prescribe. Human nature just does not like that. But you can bundle them together and say, choose your own journey here, and maybe you capstone it. And so that way everybody gets the opportunity to choose their micro-learning journey that supports a larger curriculum. So In this case, you're helping to move the learning forward, but it's not going to solve all of your problems. So would I suggest that you put leadership development all in microlearning? No, that's not going to work for you. So it is not a one size fits all type of modality. You really need to decide which is fit for purpose for you. So those were the three that you identified were the most important. So now let's talk about the others. But before I do, let's see, do you guys have any questions? I'm going to give you a second to process what I just said and ask me any questions. Patricia, did I answer your question? Let me know if I did. I'll give you guys a moment to think. Yes, with an exclamation point even. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. Good, good. I'm glad I clarified the issue for you. Okay, so no questions, but feel free. Ask your questions as I continue moving through this. I'm glad. Oh, good. I'm helping you out so far. Excellent. Love it. Okay, so the next myth that we have here is all about video because TED Talks, right? We all subscribe probably to TED Talks on YouTube, and subsequently then we think, oh, video, everything's got to be video. Well, that's not true. There are many different modalities to choose from, and to help you determine the right way to present your microlearning content. I am a big believer in infographics. I think a lot of the content that we develop today is just an infographic screaming to get out. It's a checklist screaming to get out. It's not necessarily a video, and a video doesn't always work because if you think about your end users, and we should be thinking about the end users here, is that they may not have access to Wi-Fi. They may have terrible bandwidth wherever they are at. They may not be in an environment that allows them to watch a video. So sometimes we create a video thinking that it's the best solution, but it's not really the best solution for what happens in the field because we have to think about context. How are people going to access the help that they need? So again, if you have a salesperson driving in a car, are we going to ask them to bring up a video? No, at least I hope not. Or if they do, I hope they have really good car insurance. No, what we really want, a lot of times if you have people who are in cars and they're driving around all day, you want to give them something that's more audio based. So you may want to create a podcast series of how to negotiate a sale, or how to answer difficult questions, things like that. So you really need to think about how is the information going to be presented. So infographics present large chunks of content in a very manageable fashion, and there are lots of programs out there to help you create really good infographics. If you have zero design skills, tools like PictoChart, PIKTOCHART, PictoChart. Learning curve is small, lots of templates to choose from, lots of graphics. Second to that is Visme, VISME. Visme is another program where you can develop infographics on the fly. Audio clips, like I said, you've got tools like Podbean, PODBEAN, which help you not only create podcasts or audio clips, but it also helps you to store them because not every organization has a place to store audio clips. So if you create some sort of white paper or an article or a blog post or something along those lines for people to read, you can attach an audio clip to it. So rather than them reading it, they can listen to it while they're on the train or on the bus or while they're in traffic. So you're giving them a variety of different ways to consume the content. Decision trees, checklists, FAQ sheets. Posters. All of those are examples of solid micro-learning elements which help people do the job at the point of need. So it's not always video. Now, if you are going to shoot video, there are things that you do need to take into consideration. The people. Are you going to use real life people or animated people? And if you're going to use real life people and animated people, you have to create a diverse subset of people. You know, real life people, not just the stock figures. You know, if you got all of the, 20 something people they're all wearing white shirts or blue shirts or something like that. You want to create some diversity. But also think about the people who are on the receiving end. Like I said before, how are they going to receive the content? Timing. Here's something that you may have noticed in my definition of microlearning is that I did not specify a time. I did not say that microlearning has to be 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 2 minutes. And if you're ever on a webinar or you're ever in a conference session that says microlearning has to be 5 minutes or less, I need y'all to get up and walk out, because microlearning is all about creating objects or content that it's as long as necessary and as short as possible. So you create the video that needs to be as long as it needs to be, but it needs to be as short as possible. Okay, so not 15-minute videos, maybe a 10-minute video, but you got to think in short bursts. But there's nothing specific that I'm going to tell you to stick to. And I know that we hate that. We kind of want rules that tell us, oh, it's got to be 5 minutes. Well, it's not. But try to keep it as short as you possibly can. Be sure that you have the right equipment. You know, each of your cell phones are now video tools right in the palm of your hands. Your phones shoot great videos. And my husband has an Android phone, and that thing takes way better photos and videos than my iPhone does. But it does have some great capabilities. So don't be afraid to shoot video on the fly. They also have great editing capabilities too. So video anymore is not the purview of the educated, if you will. So I'm not saying that you need to be a videographer, but you can make it simple for yourselves. Be sure that the videos are relevant, and be sure that you're trying to tell a story. Be sure you've got a story to tell. Videos are all about the story. So tell a story to get your point across. Okay, so next up is understanding that when I talk about video and I talk about infographics, I want to be sure that I'm making the point that we are determining content first, modality last. Your modality needs to fit within the point of content. So as I said before, you're not going to shoot off a video to people who drive trucks all day. That doesn't make any sense. So if you want them to be able to consume the content, you've got to be able to think about where is it going to be used best. Then think about, what is the content trying to say? If I'm trying to teach somebody how to tie their shoe, I'm not going to send them an audio clip, because that's just not going to work. I might want to send them pictures rather, or even a little video. So think about the story that your content is trying to tell, then fit the modality to fit that. Most times we think about tool first. Oh, we've got to shoot a video. Now what are we going to do in that video? Oh, we're going to make an infographic. Okay, what are we going to put in that infographic? Think about it the other way around. Content first, modality last. All right. So the next thing is time dependent. And I touched on this just a little bit ago here. And as I said, a lot of people are really focused in that short is what counts. But really what counts is making the content as long as necessary and as short as possible. And the reason I say that is because YouTube tells us, and there was a study done by ComCore, that the average video view is 4.4 minutes. Now, here's the other thing that it tells us, is that the average video view is 4.4 minutes. Now, if your video is displaying something absolutely critical to the need and people find it very relevant to what they need to do, they're going to watch a video as long as 12 minutes. And we know this to be true. Any of us who have fallen down the rabbit hole of YouTube, if you need help, I just recently fixed a toilet in my house and I'm super proud of that. But I watched a YouTube video to make that happen. And the YouTube video was like 18 minutes. I watched the whole thing because I needed to watch the whole thing. It was critical to what I was going to do. So if the content is super critical, super relevant, people will watch your video upwards to 12 minutes. You lose them after that. But the average video view is 4.4 minutes. So is that a sweet spot? Yes. Is it absolute? No. So again, what's the content trying to tell? Now, the other study here done by the Norman Group was that only 20% of people will read a web page from beginning to end. Right? So that means that all of those, PDF files that you're writing, all of those SOPs that you're writing and that you're putting on a wiki or you're putting in your LMS, people aren't reading those, people. So that means we need to keep that content short. We need to follow theories like info mapping. So info mapping tells us that how to write content in short, succinct manner, how to put things in tables so that they're easy to read. So we want to be sure that when people are actually reading information, they can find the information that they need. Too often we write training manuals and SOP manuals like they're War and Peace, like they're fiction novels. But we really need to take into consideration that we need to write things in a simpler fashion. Okay, so let's go through the comments here. Yeah, the good thing about videos is that they can be started, you can start and stop them. That is the good thing. And here's what I would encourage you guys to keep in mind. I'm only reading part of this comment. I'm going to stop and address this one specific part of the comment. Is that when you are creating videos, be sure that your video tool, wherever it's hosted, that it works like YouTube. People want to be able to stop a video. Too often we force play them. So they need to be able to stop. They need to be able to rewind. They need to be able to access the transcript. And it'd be great if you could actually put in an area where they can like it, because the more that, if you think about how you filter information on YouTube, if you're searching for how to fix a toilet like I did, you're looking for the ones with the most likes. You're looking for the ones with the most views. So you want to be able to allow your videos to be aggregated in such a format. So they need to work like YouTube because that's what people expect. Okay. And so when you are putting those out there, be sure that they operate seamlessly. Okay. The other part that I did want to spend some time talking about here is chunking. Now, some of you may have, when you first started hearing about microlearning, you said, well, what's the big deal? It's just chunking, right? And I know that that was the thought that I had when I first started doing my research years ago, when I first started hearing murmurs about this. I was like, oh my God, L&D is coming up with yet another buzzword. We don't need another buzzword, people. Microlearning is just chunking. And that was my headstrong opinion coming into this. But I also decided to do my own research. And my research told me that it's not chunking. It's not just slicing and dicing it. So you've got the president of the organization, and he's created an hour-long video on the history of the organization, right? And that happens all the time. And then he comes to you and he says, okay, chop this up into 4 15-minute bits. And you say, okay, because that is the right thing to do. From a chunking perspective, chunking is all about managing the cognitive load of the learner. That's why we chunk things, and that's why we should continue to chunk things, to manage the cognitive load. Now, when we chunk things, that means then, if I'm going to go back to that video for the president, or of the president, then we need to watch part 1 and part 2 and part 3 and part 4 in order for the video to make sense. So we have to watch all of the parts, right? Now, here's the difference. The difference is that microlearning has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Chunking, in the way that I just described it, has a beginning, a middle, and a to be continued. So in those 4 15-minute videos, they have a beginning, a middle, and a to be continued. Now, if we took that very same video and we broke it up into 4 15-minute parts, and each of those 15-minute parts had an introduction and a conclusion with a learning moment in the middle, that then subsequently becomes microlearning content, because I can take part 2 and I can watch part 2 without having to watch the other parts and manage to learn something from it. So microlearning is a standalone piece of knowledge. I can take it, I can learn from it, I can do something based on the information that's being given to me, and I can go about my day. It's not dependent on anything else around it. That is the biggest difference between microlearning and chunking. And so when I think about microlearning, what I've done for clients, for other clients, is that I've created microlearning bits that connect to their larger macro content, but yet are standalone. So a salesperson doesn't have to attend the full sales class to use the microlearning elements and learn from them. That is the biggest difference there between microlearning and chunking, and how microlearning can be used. Now, you guys all on board with me? Hopefully, yes. Yes, thank you. All right. So the other myth here is that high tech is required. More shiny things. There are a lot of tools out there, people, a lot of tools out there. And you don't have to be high tech in order to use them. Some of them are very easy to use. You know, the latest thing right now, not the latest thing right now, I say it like it's a fad, it's not. We've got augmented reality and virtual reality. Now, I personally think, and I've got Debbie on the phone here, so hopefully she agrees with me. I personally think that augmented reality is going to be more helpful to us in the near future than virtual reality from a learning and development perspective. There are so many things out there that you can use. Does that mean then that we have to start incorporating augmented reality into everything? No, because it's not fit for purpose. Is it high tech? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. So it's all about what tools you're going to use and how are you going to incorporate them. So you've got some higher level things like augmented reality or virtual reality. And then you've got some low techy things like PowerPoint. So you got high techy, low techy, right? Because you know what? You can use a PowerPoint. You could do a recorded PowerPoint. The latest PowerPoint 365 allows you to record audio over your PowerPoint slides. You can take a PowerPoint, you can change the sizing, and you can turn it into an infographic. You can do recorded animation on PowerPoint, so you can create your own little movies if you don't want to use a tool like Powtoons or Go Animate. So there are so many things out there that are right at your fingertips, to make microlearning more interesting and engaging, and not just, you know, a PowerPoint deck with a bunch of text and a bunch of bullets on it, you know, that we're killing people with. You know, so we don't need to have a whole bunch of high-tech tools in order to make microlearning work for us. So that was just the one thing that I wanted to be sure to point out to make sure that you understood. And so once again, focusing on things like wallet cards and checklists and job aids, decision trees, user-generated content. Don't be afraid of the user-generated content. People can go out, they can take pictures on their cell phone. They can send those pictures to you. You can put it through a tool like Adobe Spark, and you can create a little movie based on the video, the pictures that an end user sent to you. How beneficial would that be? You've got a mechanic out there, and he comes across an air conditioning unit that always breaks. This particular unit always has the same problem. He takes pictures of the fail. He takes pictures of the fix. He sends those to you. You slap it into Adobe Spark. You send it out to everybody. Bada bing, bada boom. That's not high tech at all. Or you put it through you put those pictures into PowerPoint, you set it so that they're automated with a few comments, and you send those out to everybody. So those things really help to create those learning moments.
Shannon, we have a question from Jermaine. He's asking about getting more information about user-generated content.
Okay. Thank you for that, Jermaine. Can you be a little bit more specific? What do you mean about where can we get more information about helping? Oh, I passed by that. Because it allows for.
I'm gonna, if it's okay, Jermaine, I'm going to unmute you so that you can just ask your question.
Okay. Well, I was just asking because this is the first time that I've ever heard about user-generated content, and I think that this is a great topic. I think that it would be extremely useful because I like the fact that it allows the users to get involved on learning, and as well as it gives them the sense that they are, contributing to opportunity areas for other learners like their peers and things like that. So this is the first time that I've ever heard of user-generated content in the kind of the platform that you were saying, with along the lines of uploading it to Adobe Spark and things like that. So I was just wondering, where could we get kind of more formal information on user-generated content and that kind of ideal?
Sure. You know what? There's a lot written about user-generated content. There's a lot out there that'll give you some of the pros and cons about user-generated content. Now, I'll be honest with you, the field is kind of split on this, where they say, well, we don't necessarily trust user-generated content. And I get it, because sometimes the end users are incorrect in how they do things. But I would much rather the end user send me the content, and I can see where things are running amok, and then we can gently redirect if we need to, but I still have it. And so I would encourage you to go out. ATD has stuff written on user-generated content. You can find lots of it online. I don't think I have a specific, Debbie, you may want to insert your thoughts here, but I don't have a specific go-to for user-generated content. Do you?
There's a lot of research on collaboration and user-generated content, and like Shannon, I'd recommend that you go out and look online. But Jermaine, also, if you will send us an email and ask us that question, I'll forward that to Janet Harrison, who's in charge of our webinars, and see if maybe we can get a speaker to talk about that for us next year.
Oh, great idea. Great idea. Yeah. So when you talk about user-generated content, that is just, the concept is simple. It is your people going out, finding things, and putting it into a collaborative space. So for example, some of the clients that I have, I use, it depends, sometimes it's Google Docs. And so before I go into a leadership development workshop, I have one client in particular where I do several leadership development workshops with them. I have the students go out. I say, okay, there's all sorts of leadership models out there. I want you guys to go out, Google some stuff, find some videos, and send them to me. Send me the ones that are most interesting to you. Send me your questions ahead of time. And so they generate a lot of the content that goes into the workshop. It's like, okay, we're going to do situational leadership. Go out there and I want you guys to go dig and find stuff. But also what I want you to do is I want you to go out into your workplace and I want you to take pictures of leadership in action. I want you to take some video of you interviewing somebody about what leadership means to your organization and send those back to me. And then what we do is we incorporate those pictures and videos into our workshop. And so that then makes the learning more powerful because they are the ones creating it. You're going to put it together, you're going to curate it, and you're going to maybe edit some things and make it all important and relevant to them. But that becomes really super powerful. So I hope that helps you. All right. So I realize we're running we're not behind, we're actually right on time. So hopefully I've helped to clear up some of the microlearning myths that are out there. So I'm going to give you, in these last couple of minutes that we have left, if there are any additional questions as I go through. So any additional questions about microlearning myths? Did I help you? I hope so. And I see that we've got something here, something blinking at me. Okay. Any additional questions? Good. I'm glad you all found it helpful. I see some stuff popping in. That's excellent. So all I would tell you now is, take the knowledge that you've learned here, go out, do some research, put those pieces of information together, because I'm not going to pretend that I'm the one and only, subject matter expert here in regards to microlearning. But I hope that I have helped set the path for you and to give you some good markers to help you move forward. So when you have these conversations with your business, with your leadership, and they say, what about all this microlearning stuff? You now have something to give them. You have something to talk with them, to them, rather. And you have a foundation in which to build. So I appreciate your time today. And here is my information. Also, if you go to my website, you can sign up directly to my newsletter. And on my newsletter is where I send additional microlearning tips as well as instructional design tips. I would love to have you in my newsletter, what I call my rebellious village. It would be nice to have you all as a part of that. And I'm also doing some special Christmas giveaways this year. So it would be nice to see your names pop up. But here's my information. You've got my website, my Twitter handle. You can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. I like to say, if you can't find me, there are bigger problems in the world, because there's no reason why somebody can't find me any longer. You can also reach me directly at shannon@learningrebels.com. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer those for you. So Debbie, I don't know if you had any closing remarks that you'd like to make.
Yes, thank you so much, Shannon. This was a great webinar. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I too learned a lot of interesting things during the webinar, and really appreciate you taking the time with us. I just want to remind everyone that we are recording the webinar and we'll have it out on our YouTube channel. So if you've got other folks that are interested in hearing what Shannon had to say, you can point them to the YouTube channel, and they'll be able to play back the recording. I just want to remind everyone to check the ATD Houston website at tdhouston.org for upcoming webinars and events. We'll be posting those. We have a little bit of a lull right now as we celebrate Employee Learning Week and get ready for 2019. We have some wonderful things planned for 2019, and we hope that you'll be a part of it. So thank you again, Shannon, and thank you everyone for being a part of today's webinar. And we will see you in 2019.